This is Red Ice Radio. From the apparent to the esoteric. RedIceCreations.com.
Welcome friends, it's good to have you back with us once again. My name is Henrik Palmgren. We are coming to you from the Scandinavian Peninsula, and I hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world. We'll continue on the theme of past life regression and future life progression today and talk with Dolores Cannon, who is a pioneer on this kind of work. She's a hypnotherapist, author, and speaker with over 40 years of experience. She's also a crop circle investigator, UFO specialist, and she's authored about 15 books. She still travels the world giving lectures, and today she joins us from the road for an hour to talk about her ongoing tour and her latest book as well. Her website is DoloresCannon.com, where you can find out much more. Welcome to Red Ice Radio, Dolores Cannon. It is great to have you with us. You're obviously out traveling, you're out on the road as it were, so thank you very much for joining us. We know that it can be a hassle and a trick sometimes to get the calendar straight, so to speak, but it's great to have you with us, Dolores. How are you today?
Oh, I'm fine, but like you said, we're in the middle of a U.S. Speaking tour, and so we're in a hotel room, so we're going from city to city over here before we come to Europe.
Absolutely, that's excellent. You're currently in Portland. Where are you heading next, by the way, in the States, for those who are listening and might want to come and see you live, Dolores?
All right, we're in Portland, Oregon right now. We have already done Washington, D.C., Boston, and Canada, and we leave Portland, we go to Palm Springs, California, and then on to Sedona. That's the magic land of the Red Rocks. And we'll be done there about the end of July.
End of July, and then you're heading over to Europe, obviously, later on as well, UK. Before that, you're coming to Stockholm, and we definitely a little bit later want to give out some of those dates so that people can come and look at you. How is it to travel around, Dolores? Are you getting... I guess you have done it quite a bit, it's speaking engagement throughout your life and so forth. Is it getting easier, or is it getting difficult doing it, Dolores?
Oh, it's never difficult, but it's just the long plane rides is what I don't like when we're going from all the way halfway around the world. But we go all over the world constantly. Right after the UK tour, I have to go directly to India for a big conference there. And then we go on to Singapore, Australia. I won't really be home until November, the end of November.
Ooh, that's a long time, yeah.
It gets to be a way of life whenever you do this, and I really like mixing with the people and having my classes, but, you rest when you can. That's the only way you could do it.
That's right. And of course, in the meantime, while traveling and doing speeches and things like this, you are writing books as well. The latest one you have out now is called The 3 Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth, and you've obviously been looking at the, well, shall we call them the cosmic forces that have been in play or so over the last 66 years. You have an idea that we've gotten help, obviously, from the outside in terms of preservation of the human race, and I think it's a pretty interesting sync, if you will, here, Dolores. I mean, in 1945, when the atomic bomb, or bombs actually, 2 of them went off in Japan, you say that there are protectors or watchers, saw that Earth was in a kind of a collision course, if you will, with disaster. But now here we are, 66 years later, and we've had, well, if you will, Dolores, another kind of radiation disaster happening over Japan. What's going on there, Dolores?
What do you mean, with the radiation, or what?
Yeah, with the interesting aspect that we've 66 years later, we're in this strange situation when we have a dangerous radiation situation in Japan again. Is it coincidental? Is it an accident? What do you think it is?
No, we had Chernobyl in between. We've had other nuclear disasters also since the big one in 1945. We've had several others that have spread radiation all around the world. They said the one in Chernobyl was actually spreading much more than the one in Japan right now. Well, these are all things with the Earth is making its changes. But, my work with that, we talked about 1945, that has all come about through my work with hypnosis. Because, I'm not a channeler, I'm not a psychic. All of the things I write about in my 16 books have come from my actual cases that I do in my hypnosis, in past life regression. And I get lost information, I get new information, and I have to put it all together. And so that's like putting a puzzle together, because I see so many thousands of people in my work. You get a piece from one and a piece from another, and that's where I've come up with the theory on the 3 waves. And it began back then, but that's whenever the volunteers began coming in, they began being born. You know, what we call the baby boomer generation is all part of that. This has come about in my sessions where they'll say, we heard the call. They said, Earth is in trouble, who wants to volunteer and go help Earth? And so they volunteered to come into a human form, and although many of these have never been in a human body before. That's the problem, because they're not used to being here. They're used to being free on the spirit side, or maybe on ETs, on planets, other planets, and on spaceships. So they decided to volunteer and come help Earth in this predicament, because when the bomb was dropped, there's no way we could have handled everything that was going to happen. And the watchers, the ones that take care of us, like you said, the protectors, they knew we couldn't handle this, because there was a chance we could blow up the Earth. That's the problem. That's why they had to stop it some way without interfering, because the law of non-interference is it's a very strict law in the universe. So they asked for volunteers to come. So it's quite a complex story, but it makes sense, because I get emails and letters from all over the world, and they all said, finally, this makes sense. Because these people that have come in since 1945, they don't know what their mission is consciously. But they know on another level, they keep saying, I don't want to be here, I don't belong here, I don't want to be here, this is not home, I don't know where home is, but I know it's not here. And there's that sense of frustration. And I get many of these people feel the same way. And after they read the book, or after they hear me on the radio, they'll say, finally, I know I'm not alone. There's others out there just like me that feel lost. They don't belong here because of the violence and everything.
Can you tell us a bit what kind of changes the Earth is going through? I mean, you mentioned that the Earth is in trouble, and what is some of the effects of this then?
Well, you know what trouble we have. You just mentioned the radiation. But even before that, the environment problems. Now things are beginning to be paid attention to and beginning to look in that direction. But you know, back in the 40s, nobody even thought anything about the environment. And we were doing a lot to harm the Earth. But they were really worried that with this radiation, we could blow up the Earth. We weren't supposed to have atomic power at that time. We were not supposed to get the atomic power until we could use it positively. But when it came in as a weapon, and that was not the way it was meant to be. So that was what they were worried, because we wouldn't know how to use it, we could destroy the Earth. So they had to bring these people in to more or less calm things down and change the energy of the Earth. Because you remember, we had just gone through that horrible Second World War.
That's right. So you've been looking at cycles as well, Dolores. It seems that we've gone through similar, changes or similar cycles, if you will, of the same actions in the past. I know that you've tied in ancient civilizations beyond, if you will, our most recent civilization, and it seems like we're almost back in the same kind of situation. If you read some of the material that has come to us from Atlantis, Lemuria, other types of civilizations as well. We're now on the brink where we begin to tinker now with the genetics and very, very powerful, weaponry, if you will, as well. Weather manipulation technologies, things like this. So what is going on in the bigger picture, Dolores? Are we in a larger cycle of some kind? What's your take on this?
Well, see, everything you have mentioned, I've written about in my books, because I had people go back to lifetimes where they were in these various civilizations that did go down. Atlantis was not the only one. That was the last one. But there were many times when we could have destroyed the Earth. And we went through these cycles before. But now they said we're at the brink again, where we could do it again. That's why it is a definite cycle. And the genetics, all of these things were done in Atlantis. And in my work, they kept saying, we don't want this to happen again. You're pushing it toward that edge again. So we don't want this to happen. So they're trying to keep it from happening by bringing in these new souls who don't have the karma. They are not caught on the wheel of karma, where they're caught up in all of these things that are happening. The main thing is to stop it now and change direction, and that's what these new souls have done, because they said, finally, we have tipped the scale. They're not so worried about it anymore. They said there's now hundreds of thousands of these new souls are here, and I call them 3 waves because they all have different characteristics. But they're here now, and we can change the world, and we're going toward a wonderful new earth. That is, all these changes are happening right now. So we are beginning to tip the scale, and we're going in a totally new direction. And that's my part in all of this, is to get the word out.
Is this the reason also, do you think, that there's more people on the planet now than it probably ever have been in the past?
Well, that's what's called the population question. That doesn't make any difference, because all the souls that have ever been created have never been on the earth at one time. But now they figure more and more people are here because they want to experience this. They want to go through it, and they want to help. That's why a lot of souls coming in have never been here before, which might explain part of the population question.
And who is behind this then? Who has the capability to bring new souls to the planet and so forth? Is this tied to your work on the custodians, Dolores?
Yes, if you've read The Custodians and The Keepers of the Garden, it talks about the ones who created us and the ones who have been watching us and protecting us since the beginning of time. And there are councils. There are councils over everything. There's councils over the earth. There's councils over the solar system, over the galaxies, over the universes. There's definite rules and regulations, and that's what these people are instructed by. And people say, well, where's God in all of this? God is very much a part of it, because God is the one who's giving them the main instructions to go and do this. Now, every planet has it's like a history in these councils. They keep records of everything that happens to every planet, especially once life has been introduced on that planet. And it's like a history of the Earth. So they know exactly what's going on. So they're the ones that decide. And that's why whenever this happens, they have this law of non-interference. They can't interfere. They can't just step in and say, hey, you're messing around with something that's going to destroy you, because that's the law of non-interference into a civilization. So they didn't know how they were going to do it. So these ones that watch us and take care of us went back to the council and told them what was happening, and they came up with this brilliant plan. We can't interfere from the outside. Maybe we can influence by the inside, by asking, is there anyone who wants to come and help who are not caught on the wheel of karma? The new souls, the pure souls who have had nothing to keep them from doing this. But these people, they don't know it consciously. That's the problem, and they're very mixed up because they don't understand why they're here. So
are you saying, Dolores, in one way then, that the new souls that are coming in have something, obviously they're different than the souls that have been here already? Does that mean that the older souls, if you will, then have been so long maybe in the cycle of reincarnation that they are not capable of doing certain things that the new ones are, or what's the difference there?
Definitely. That's what I said. The older souls have been caught in this rut. They're on the wheel of karma, keep making the same mistakes over and over again through many, many different lifetimes, and they just haven't got it figured out. All they do is keep doing the same things over and over. And the only way to save the earth is to get out of that cycle of the reincarnation and the wheel of karma. They've got to the point where they can't do it. They've accumulated too much. So you bring in souls that have no karma, it would work much better. And when they come in, the new souls have like a sheath or a covering over them, so they will not accumulate karma. They won't draw it toward them. They want to do their job and then get out of here. They don't want to be stuck here. But they're doing a lot of help to the old souls because they're helping them to understand on another level. You can't just come out and talk to people about these things because they wouldn't understand. But they are providing a very valuable service just by being here and sharing their energy. It's a very powerful energy that's going to help the earth and will turn a lot of people around.
What do you see, Dolores, with the function, or I guess the reason in one way, of us forgetting the fact that we're in the reincarnation cycle? When we come here to this planet, it seems then that we are we have a disadvantage in that sense, that we don't have the memory of the past. Obviously, as you've proven with your work and so forth, there is ways to access this memory, but this is not obviously available. It's available, but it's not known or rejected actually by most people, if you will. But what do you see the function of just that loss of memory being?
It's a very valuable function. This is a school you have chosen to attend. It's an earth school, and you have to go from class to class. This can take, many lifetimes, because you have to be everything before you are finished, and you have to experience everything. So that's why each thing that happens, if you don't build up karma, you move on to the next class or the next lesson. But if you fail that grade, that class, you have to take it over again. That's where the karma comes in. The idea is to go from class to class to finish the school and graduate, and then return to God, to the source. But it takes the average person a long time because they build up all of this karma. But I asked them one time, wouldn't it be easier if we knew why we were here, if we knew our connection with other people, our contracts, wouldn't that be easier? They said it wouldn't be a test if you knew the answers. But this is the only planet in the universe that forgets when they come in. And it's all done for a reason, because this is an extremely challenging planet. And we choose to come here to learn emotions and limitations. And they said we're the only planet where the being comes in forgetting your connection to the source, to God, forgetting the reasons why you come in. And you got to stumble back, find it out all by yourself. They said they really admire us for taking this on, because the rest of them, they remember why they're here. They remember on their planets, they remember all these things. The people that come to Earth are the ones who have been programmed to forget. They said they've been programmed with amnesia. Then let's see how they're going to do it. Are they going to be able to find their way back? That's a great advancement. That takes a master soul to be able to do that. That's why they said when you choose to come to Earth, even when the old souls, the ones who've been here a long time, when you choose to come to Earth, you're greatly admired, because it takes a very brave soul to want to go through this very difficult school. There are other planets out there that don't have emotions like we do. They don't have the strong emotions. We have free will. There are many planets that don't have free will. This is a very unusual and challenging planet, but we've chose to be here, and it's going through some exciting times right now.
That's right. If we look at the wheel of karma as a graduation process, as you said, Dolores, I mean, if we then look into history, we can see that, well, subversion, wars, fighting, these kind of nonsensical, if you will, although there is lesson in those, we understand that too. But these are aspects that are occupying, obviously, people from looking into matters of our own spirit and our own soul. So the question is it all? Do you think it's all our own fault, if you will, then, that we have not managed to graduate, or is it more to the question than that?
Well, it is us, because we're the ones that set up the circumstances we're going to experience. We plan it all when we're on the spirit side before we come in. We looked at the life we have just left, and we get ready to come into this life, we have to see all the mistakes we've made, all the people we have hurt. We have to set up our contracts and what we're going to do. And we're the ones that create all of these things as challenges so that we can move through it. They've told me many times that everything is an illusion. It's not real anyway. But of course, we get caught up in it. It feels very, very real. They said it's just a play. It's like actors playing on a stage. And you are the director, producer, actor, and writer of the script. The only thing is the script is being written as you go along. But if you can look at it from that way, it's just an illusion, it's just a game, we can understand it a whole lot better. But we're moving away from the violence and the wars because that belongs in the past. That's what they say, the veil is lifting, the awakening. It's because the veil is thinning, we're beginning to remember more. We're beginning to understand why we're here. So there's big changes that are getting ready to happen.
So, Dolores, if we look at this this experience then as being a game, if you will, as you mentioned, there seems to be a difference to when it comes to the physical planet. That's real, and I guess that needs to be, if you will, then protected, because it's at this point that the custodians that you mentioned before are interfering. I guess you've argued as well that it's not so much from the outside, but more from the inside, of course. But here is where they draw a line. Do I understand that correct?
Well, they're not interfering. They are helping by influencing to get some new souls in here who are not caught up on the wheel of karma, to make a difference with their energy. If we could change the energy of the people, they wouldn't be so negative and be stuck into the violence. That's why they're coming in with a very pure energy. And many of these people have no idea that they're doing this. But just by being in a shopping mall, walking through that, or walking through a grocery store, their energy is affecting everyone that they come into contact with, and they don't even realize it. It's that type of a thing. They're doing it without knowing what they're actually here to do.
I see. So, but you don't think that it's the point, if you will, then to, because this is a question of if we can learn through experience, if you will, then if that's the best way to learn something, to learn a lesson, if you will. So if we look at it again from the point of view of a planetary, destruction, do you think we would truly then learn to break this cycle if we actually experience this? Would that be the, if you will, then horribly as it is done, but would that be the best lesson to learn this, or why do you think we're keeping on going back to this situation over and over and over again in these cycles, Dolores?
You mean it would be a grand lesson to destroy the planet? Is that what you mean?
Well, I mean, if we're returning in that cycle all the time, is that an idea then that we must learn the lesson, if you will? So this is supposed to happen, if you know what I mean.
Well, they can't understand why it's taken us so long to learn these lessons. But that's the only time they would ever interfere. But if we get to the point that we could destroy the Earth, because that cannot be allowed to happen. And I wondered, well, what difference would it make with a small planet over here? They said, we are a small planet, and we're isolated over here in this part of the solar system on purpose, because they don't want our violence influencing the rest of the universe. But we're isolated over here on purpose, and that's why they're watching us and observing what we're doing. But if we can't destroy the Earth, because if we did, it would cause reverberations throughout the solar system, throughout the universe. It's how powerful it would be felt, and it would disrupt way too many things. Plus, it would also cause reverberations into other dimensions, where there are other cities and civilizations and people living in the other dimensions. So we cannot be allowed to get to that point that we could destroy the Earth. It would interfere with way too many things. That's the only time they could step in. And that's why they've done this before in the past. Atlantis and the other ancient civilizations, they reached that point when they could destroy the world. So they had to be taken down. But that's why they don't want it to happen this time. And they decided it takes too long to rebuild. When something like that happens, you start all over again from the primitive stages up. They want us to continue because there's a great future ahead of us. That's why they want the volunteers in here so they can help without knowing what they're doing. It's a great plan. I think it's a very wonderful plan.
So in that way, the Earth is a kind of a graduation machine, if you will, Dolores, if you want to look at it from that point of view.
Yeah, but you see another thing too. The Earth is a living being. It really is. It's alive. And it is getting ready to go into its next incarnation. It just takes it much longer time than we do. But it is going into a new incarnation. And it doesn't care if we go with it or not. In fact, it would much rather we didn't go with it because we're just like a nuisance. We're like fleas on a dog. Look what we've been doing to the beautiful planet. But if we choose to go, then we have to change. We have to raise our vibrations and frequencies if we're going to move with the Earth as it goes into the new Earth, into its next incarnation.
So where do you see all of the violence coming from? Why is mankind then so violently prone, and why do we end up in this situation all the time, Dolores?
Look where we came from. You know, we were created from animals. So that animal nature is still in there. Even though it's been, in modern times we have pushed it aside, we have still not succeeded in erasing it. The animal nature is still there, and the people still revert to that. That's why they want this new energy to stop that, to move it away from it, because it serves no purpose. The violence is what makes you have to come back and do the karma over and over again. So we're moving away from that. The violence that we have now will be left with the old Earth. They said it will be left with what they have created. And to separate out the new Earth is moving into its next incarnation was going to be wonderful and beautiful. And it's not at all like they talk about the end of the world. It's not that at all. It's a very slow and subtle process, and we have been in the middle of it since about 2003. It's a gradual process. But if we want to go with the new Earth rather than staying with the violence, we have to change our vibration frequency also. That's what they mean by the veil is thinning. We're reawakening. We know what we have to do.
It's an interesting point that you bring up in terms of the animals and all that, because on one level I see that mankind hold so much more violence than many of the animals do on our planet. I guess obviously that has to do what animal potentially then that mankind has mixed with genetically, but I mean, does that mean that all the animals on the planet hold the same level of violence that we do, Dolores?
Well, I don't think so. I think man has surpassed them as far as violence is concerned. It was a lesson to be learned there, I suppose, as they created as they went along, but it was never supposed to be that way. And it won't be that way in the new Earth.
So, can you tell us a little bit more about the new people then coming in, the three waves of volunteers that you talk about in the new book, and also would be interesting to know how we would, I guess, recognize some of these people?
You wouldn't recognize them. They will know themselves. That's where the emails keep coming in. They'll say, I know, I'm first wave, I'm second wave, because finally it's making sense to them. Right? Remember, these are people who had the memories erased when they came in. When they were asked to volunteer, they'll say, oh yeah, I want to go help. And one woman in one session, she said, I stupidly raised my hand, not realizing what it was going to be like if they'd never been in a human body, because it's all dense and heavy when they get here. No, the first wave, we figured started being born somewhere around the end of World War II. So they'd be in their 50s, early 60s, 40s, those age groups. And they really don't want to be here. They don't like it. They don't understand the violence. They don't understand, they don't like it, they don't understand it, they don't understand strong emotions like hate and anger and fear. It frightens them because they've never experienced it. On the planets and the places they came from, they didn't have it. It's an earth thing. So it frightened them. So they don't like that. And many of these people have good families, they have good jobs, but yet they've tried to commit suicide because they really don't want to be here in this world. And they're always saying, I want to go home, but I don't know where home is. I just know it's not here. So it's a feeling of confusion. And I have many, many of these clients coming to me that they don't really realize where it's happened, where it's coming from. But during the session, they go back to what is their true home, and they realize they just came here to help. But that's the first wave, had it the hardest. The second wave, I guess you would say, would be in their 30s, 20s, somewhere in there. It's very hard to put exact dates on these. And they have it much easier. But with them, it's more like we're called an antenna, a generator, a channel of energy, positive energy. And they're the ones that influence everyone around them just by their energy. They don't know this consciously. But they come to me and they'll say, well, I want to know what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And they're told you're not supposed to do anything, you're just supposed to be, just to generate energy. But they keep saying, I want to do something. They are doing something by just being and existing. And a lot of these people work from home. They don't want to be around people, even though that's what they're supposed to be influencing. They don't like to be around people. Many of these first and second wavers don't marry, or if they are lucky enough, they'll find one of their own kind. But they don't want to have children because they don't want to create karma. And children create karma, so they all fall into this age group, this categories. But many of them work from home, and they're very happy people, even though they're loners. But I asked one time, why did the first wave have it much harder than the second wave? They said that's because somebody had to be the forerunner. Somebody had to be the pioneer and set the trail so the other ones could follow. That's why the second wave has had it much easier, following in the footsteps of the first one. But I hear this so many times, people saying, I don't want to be here, I don't like it here, what's wrong with me? A lot of times doctors put them on antidepressants, but when they understand they're just one of these volunteers, it turns their world around. They know they're not alone.
And I reckon that these are people who are coming to all different cultures and countries around the world, obviously as well. But how many do you think we're talking about in total, Dolores?
Well, I've been told there's already been hundreds and thousands of these people born. So they said now they think we have tipped the scale and the world will not be destroyed because of all these souls that have volunteered to come in. So that's very good. It means we can do it.
So that's interesting. Where are we now then, as we mentioned before there, 66 years later? What is next in this process? Does this mean that, let's say, if we take the antithesis to a person that you currently have been describing, someone who is more heavy and aggressive, and someone who don't want to go along in these changes, what will happen with those people, Dolores?
They'll stay with the old earth. They'll stay with what they have created. Because they said the vibration and frequency, it's changing now. It's been changing since 2003, gradual process. But those who will not change their vibration to move on, it can't happen suddenly because it would destroy the body. It has to be done gradually. So if they're not going to change, we're not supposed to make anybody do anything. If they feel they want to stay with where they are in the negativity, that's all right. That's where they will be. But if they said eventually they'll all get there. But there's not to worry about it. But those who I work with and I speak with, I have my own radio show, so there's many of these, they say they know something is happening. They know something is changing. They're the ones that are moving into the new earth, into the whole new wonderful thing that's happening right now.
So there's a schism, obviously, that you talk about. I've heard this in many different ways, obviously from other people as well. That it's a kind of a it's a split that is happening because of a frequency change. Now, do you think that means that we actually have, it's the same planet, if you will, that we're on, but these worlds will drift so much apart that we're going to have two different, than, if you will, human beings living on the same planet, but they won't interact with each other in the same way anymore. They might not even see each other. Is that what's happening, or would you describe it in any other way, Dolores?
Well, it's complicated to explain. Part of what you said is correct, and part of it is not. It's hard to understand. It won't be on the same planet. Those who have moved on will be in like two separate Earths, as the one moves into a new dimension. And the ones on the old Earth won't even be aware that the other ones have gone on. It is a separation in that way.
Interesting.
It's in the Bible, in the book of Revelations, where it talks about the new heaven and the new earth, and that two people will be sleeping together, one will be taken, one will be left. Two people working side by side, one will be left and the other taken. That's what it's talking about.
So you're talking about the rapture in one way?
Well, the rapture is not even mentioned in the Bible, but if you want to call it that, that's what it is.
Interesting.
But, it is the same thing. It's just that when St. John had the vision on the Isle of Pathos, he didn't realize it was going to be thousands of years before the Earth reached that point that it wanted to evolve on its own, to go into its own incarnation. So it's moving into a separate Earth. And if we want to go with it, we have to change our vibrations and frequencies to match it as we separate the two worlds. It's complicated. That's why I've spent several years trying to get the answers. They told me you will never have all of the answers because they said they don't know. This has never happened before in the history of a universe, that an entire planet will move into another dimension.
We've had plenty of other guests on this program detailing many of the Earth changes that are happening, and also people have been trying to, I guess, mention that this is on the increase, and some people speculate this is natural from the Earth itself, while other people speculate that this is actually the tampering of man with the weather changing technologies and an ever more increasing power or energy influx into many of these systems that have been built on the planet. Do you see any distinction or difference between these, Dolores? Have you heard of the potential man-made manipulation when it comes to Earth changes?
I've written about all of these things. I thought I was going to say all of the above. In my Nostradamus books, which I wrote over 25 years ago, it explained all of this, that there is probably weather manipulation, there's earthquake machines, there's all of that. It is a possibility, and I've written about it many, many years ago. But that belongs with the old Earth. The Earth, see, the Earth is cleansing itself as it separates and moves. Look at all the water things. I don't know if you have it over where you are, but in America we've had terrible, terrible floods in the last several months that we've never had floods before. In addition to the terrible tornadoes and the weather. The Earth is trying to get rid of all of the negativity, and it's moving, and it's shaking all of this off. Like I said, just like a dog with fleas.
Absolutely. We have, by the way, there have been flooding in Copenhagen, pretty close to where we're at here at the moment. So it's happening in different parts of the world. We've had previously a lot in Germany and so forth as well. So the water, then, in that sense, does that represent something? What is that? What does that mean, Dolores?
Cleansing. That's what they said. The water will cleanse. So it's getting rid of a lot of this negativity, a lot of the things that have been holding the Earth back.
Yeah. So what do you see is next in this process, and how quick will it go, if there is such a thing? I don't know if this is timeline related, if you want to talk about that, or are we talking about more increased massive changes, or is it beginning to wind down now? Because, as you said, the shift, if you will, then has practically already happened. Do I understand that correct?
We're in the middle of it now. That's why people expect something dramatic to happen. It won't be that way. It's been happening since 2003, a gradual process. You will just You won't just all of a sudden wake up and you're there. You just have one day you begin to think, things seem better, they seem lighter. It's not as negative as it used to be. It's a gradual pulling away of the two earths, separating from each other. But it's a gradual process. That's why the year 2012 doesn't mean anything, it's just a number. By that time, it's supposed to be an accumulation of energy is so strong that it will push the earth into the new dimension. But it's a gradual process, and we're in the middle of it now, and there's no way we can stop it. We have to go along with it by raising our vibrations and our frequencies.
And how do we go about doing that, Dolores, if we spend a bit of time on that in terms of people who might question what that means, raising frequency? Explain a little bit about that.
Well, one thing, it means getting rid of the ones, the new souls. Now, they're already there. The ones who volunteers, they're there. They're there to help us. The ones who want to join with this, the main thing you've got to do is get rid of old karma. Because remember, karma holds you back to the old earth. As long as you're in karma, you have to keep coming back again and again to the same place to repay the same lessons over and over again. So one thing to do is get rid of the old karma if you want to move on with the new earth. This means forgive. Forgive all those who have hurt you. So what if you had a bad childhood? So what if your parents were terrible to you? Let it go. It has no importance anymore as we move into this whole new future. So what if you have a horrible marriage? Let it go. This is very hard for a lot of people to do. You have to forgive the other person, release them, and let it go. Then if they want to stay in that negativity, that is their karma. But at least you have moved out of it. And you begin to notice a change. See, I work with a lot of people with physical problems, and this is where it comes from, holding on to the old karma. You got to let all of it go if you want to move on. It's not easy, I know, but you have to do it. Then you have to forgive yourself, because it always takes two people to make all of this work. To release the whole thing, you've got to forgive yourself also. That's one of the big deals. Then, the second thing you have to do if you want to move with the new earth and change your vibration and frequencies, you have to let go of fear. Fear, they said, fear is an illusion. Fear is not real. Fear is for entertainment purposes only. But if you want to buy into it, okay. He said the only thing that is real is love. So if you move toward that direction, leave the fear and the violence and all the negativity behind, then you're moving into the new earth. And you'll notice the changes in your body and your life once you begin to do this.
We probably have more fear being spread on the planet right now than ever before, considering how much information we have out there, and obviously with all the major news outlets out there, Dolores, spreading, in most cases, fearful information, if you will, in that sense. And then on top of that, we have alternative media that in many cases only focuses on that aspect alone as well. And from my point of view, then, that almost seems like it's a kind of an effort to try to keep people locked in that old frequency, in that sense, that they want to have people occupied by the, as you said, fear, the entertainment of fear, if you will, in that sense. Is there anything, don't know how to word this, is it a conspiracy behind the scenes then, do you think, Dolores, in order to try to prevent people from raising their frequency in that sense? Or is it just a side effect? Is it just a reflection of people's mentality that they cling to the fear? What do you think?
Well, it's definitely a plan. It's been going on since the beginning of the Christian era, really. Look, it's all for control. You can keep the people afraid. If you can keep them afraid of moving forward, if you can keep them thinking they can't do it, you've got to depend on the government or on the church to tell you what to do. Don't think for yourself. Well, then naturally they can control you. This is why I tell people, don't buy into that fear. Ask lots and lots of questions. And then, if it doesn't make sense, well, then you can discover your own truth. Your truth may be different than my truth, but at least you will be yours that you have discovered by yourself. Now, as you said, with the internet is full of a lot of conspiracy stuff, a lot of fear things that really is not true. It's just what we used to call propaganda in World War II to get you to believe something. It is fear-based. Think for yourself. I don't even watch the news. I don't read the newspapers because I don't want to program that into myself. But that's what a lot of it is. If you look at it and say, why do they keep saying this over and over again? Then you begin to think for yourself. Don't buy into the fear.
That's right. It's a good idea, and people need to think about that as well in terms of the fact that we get so much of the same, obviously, out there, as you mentioned, Dolores, from the media and so forth as well. But what do you see, again, then, if we look at the next few years, as we begin to round things up here for this time, Dolores, how turbulent will things become, do you think? And again, does that go back to the fact that depends on where each individual are in their own life, meaning they might have to experience dramatic changes, and that will be traumatic in most cases. It will be like, that they will go through their own little dark period, if you will, while other people might be, it might be a walk in the park, if you know what I mean, Dolores, right?
Well, it's always an individual thing because that's your path, your contract, your plan that you came in to experience. But you don't have to walk that dark path if you decide you don't want to do it. That's how powerful your mind is. You realize there's another choice. You have a way of getting out of that. But you don't have to go down those paths if you don't want to do it. So it is an individual thing. And you'll find out with one individual that it influences many others until finally we have moved in a different direction. You can't control masses unless you keep them in fear.
That's right. So this new Earth, is that is it reminiscent of an idea of a new paradise, a utopia of sorts, or is there a whole new level of intrigue and drama and beginning of other types of karmic cycles that will begin there, or how do you view the new Earth then, Dolores?
There's no karma there. That's why it's so beautiful and peaceful and wonderful, because you have gone past that. You have broken through the veil. There is no more karma there. That's why you can't drag it with you. It won't exist there. But it is going to be a wonderful place, and you will have a whole new life beginning where everything is beautiful. Now, people have asked me, do I have to die to go to the new Earth? No, it's happening right now, and you will take your physical body with you. After we've been over there for I don't know how many eons of time, we will turn into light beings, because this is the next step in our evolution. But we're leaving all that negativity behind us.
All right. Dolores, I want to mention your website right here, dolorescannon.com. We will have this obviously linked up on our website, redicecreations.com, so people can find your website easily from there. But many of your titles, your book titles, are available on Ozark Mountain Publishing. The website for that is ozarkmt.com. Your latest book that we've been kind of talking about here is called The Three Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth. I also want to mention some of your previous titles, Dolores. The Custodians, as we mentioned, Beyond Abduction, Keepers of the Garden, Jesus and the Essenes. Then you also have The Convoluted Universe. That's I think, so far, 4th-part series. The 4th one is going to come out in November. I think I understood it correctly. And then you have 5 Lives Remembered, Conversations with Nostradamus, Between Death and Life, The Legend of Star Crash, Between Death and Life, as I mentioned as well. So there's a lot of material obviously out there, Dolores, but we do want to mention here, before we round things up for this time, your upcoming speaking engagements when you're heading over to Europe, obviously. Are you going to come up to Stockholm and Scandinavia first on your European tour, or where are you going?
Yes, we're going to Stockholm first, and I'll be doing a lecture there and one of my classes there. And my classes are to teach people what I do, how I get this information through hypnosis. Then I go down to Dublin, and then a tour of the UK. Now, we're going to be in Dublin, it's hard to see the dates here, on August the 23rd, I think it is. All right, but anyway, I'll be in, it's called the Mystical Tour of Dublin and Newgrange. That is on the 23rd to the 24th. Then I start on the Sacred England Tour, where we'll be going to Stonehenge, Glastonbury, and Avebury, and that will be after the one in Dublin. Now, I have written about these places, and I've had a lot more information about, especially Stonehenge, that has never been published before. It's going to go into the new book, or people have gone back to the lifetimes in those places, and we've been able to get information about what they were used for. So during the tour there, I'll be lecturing on what information I have got. And the lectures at Glastonbury, I go into the information that's in Jesus and the Essenes, and when he lived in Glastonbury, and when he studied with the Druids. Then after that, when his uncle Joseph of Arimathea came back after the crucifixion, and they were beginning the Christian religion there, I'll have a lot of information about Glastonbury that I'll be giving at that time. So everywhere we're going to go, I'll be supplying the information that I have discovered. And my daughter's here, but this goes on for a week or more, isn't it? We have the 2-day. Okay. We're going to have her go to...
It's all on the website.
Yeah, it's on the website, and tell them to locate...
There's a lot to it. This is an action-packed tour that Stephanie Bell has lined up for us, and she's done a fantastic job of putting all this together. And the best, like we said, we have the links from our website, from DoloresCannon.com, and...
to Stephanie Bell's website.
Yeah, which is Universal Mind. Where was that? Let's see. Universal. I'm sorry to be like, okay. Universal-mind.co.uk. And you'll get everything you need there, and how to reach Stephanie.
She's the one that's taking the reservations, and we'll be going to almost to the end of August. So it's going to be a long tour all over the sacred sites of England and Dublin. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, indeed. We will definitely link these up as well, guys, so don't worry about that, so people can find these websites easily. Universal-mind.co.uk, and then obviously DoloresCannon.com as well. But just as a finishing thought here, Dolores, some of those sites then that you're going to visit, Newgrange, Stonehenge, Avebury, and so forth, do you think that they are from well, obviously they are from a previous civilization because we don't have a direct link to who actually built them, but do you think that they're remnants, if you will, then from the Atlantean age, if we want to, put that tone on it, or are they simply made by people who kind of were those who were starting up things in our current cycle, Dolores? What's your take on that?
Well, they're very, very extremely old, and this is what I'll be talking about. It even goes back before the Atlantis. So it's a long time, and I'll be explaining what I have found for the purposes of these places are. So, the ones who are exploring it now, they're close to finding the answers, but it's much, much older than they think it is.
Very, very interesting. It's been great having you with us, Dolores. We really enjoyed talking with you, and obviously we hope you have a great time when you're traveling around, first now then finishing up in the US, and then heading over to Stockholm, and then your tour over in England and Ireland as well. Thank you so much for your time, Dolores. Keep up the great work, and glad to have you with us. Thank you for your time.
Okay, and anybody who wants to join us, contact Stephanie Bell. We'll be glad to have you. And thanks for asking me to be on.
That's our program for today. Thank you for taking the time to listen. And of course, we have a lot more for you if you're interested in these kinds of topics and much related material on our website, redicecreations.com. We'll be back with John Lash up next for an extremely interesting program that you shouldn't miss on Sophia's Correction. We also have David Hatcher Childress together with Brian Forrester coming on the program to discuss the mystery of the elongated skulls. Then we have Andy Lloyd to do an exclusive program about Comet Elenin and the relationship to Nibiru or Planet X. Authors Christopher Knight and Alan Butler will be with us soon as well to talk about Civilization 1 and their book Who Built the Moon. And later we'll be talking with Joseph P. Farrell about the Grid of the Gods as well. Stay tuned to Red Ice Radio for much more of the most important radio coming your way soon. In the meantime, follow our news updates on redicecreations.com, and of course, do consider to take the opportunity to get access to our members area, where we have all the material available for you. Until next time, have a great day, take good care now, and we'll talk more soon. Bye bye.